Okay, I'm going to try to knap this with a combination of steel and bronze. I got a hold of some bronze a while ago, and I'm finally getting around to making something out of it, or with it. Now this is heat treated stone, very brittle, but I think it'll show nice ribbon flakes if I'm able to control the pressure flaker well. See what happens. I tried a little earlier. Tried the nap with the bronze pressure flaker a little bit earlier. I think the tip might be a little bit long, but I wanted plenty of room in case it wears down quickly. It seems to hold up pretty well. All I did was I sanded down, or on the sander I ground it down, and at first I did kind of I don't know what you'd call that, a faceted approach, where I just laid it on the sander, let it grind down, then turn it a little bit, turn it, and then on the last bit I just kind of randomly thinned it down, and then I hammered it a little bit on the tip, not much, just to get it a little bit smoother. And I don't know if bronze hardens with hammering. I think it does, actually. When I was knapping with it earlier, it was kind of slippery. It may have been because it was hardened slightly, but I didn't hammer it much, just maybe 10 taps, just to make it more pointy. I was getting tired of grinding it. Okay. So we'll try that in a few minutes. Now this stone is very glass-like. It's almost like obsidian. After it's heated, before it's heat treated, it's kind of tough. I got to be careful striking the base. I did that earlier and I snapped a big piece in half. Trying to spoil this stuff for my larger nodule. I heated the whole nodule because this stuff does heat very well. A lot of times I can't heat the whole nodule. Most of the time I have to heat just small flakes or reasonably thin spalls. And I had to repair my indirect percussion flaker. I cracked the handle last time, so I had to switch sides, re-drill, wrap some cotton cord around it with Elmer's glue to make it stiffer and to hold it down. It should hold up better. I'm going to rough it out with indirect percussion. I'll go to pressure in a little bit. Now this is going to be a European style arrowhead. Do I think these were heat treated? Do I think the flints were heat treated in Europe? Yeah, probably. It's such a simple thing to do. And seems like a lot of accidents would happen around the fire where points would be dropped in, or you'd find a point perhaps cooked along with the meat. And you take the point out and you say, well, I can still use it, just need to resharpen it. And you find that, wow, this sharpens a lot easier now that it's been in the heat. So I would think it's a pretty easy discovery to make independently throughout different parts of the world. So yeah, I think European points were probably heat treated, the rock anyway, before they napped it. Now, is that in all cases? No, probably not in all cases. Good quality flint does not need to be heat treated. It naps just fine in a raw state. Now this is slipping. It reminds me of brass, but it's not as bouncy as brass, not as flexible. It just feels like a more slippery version of steel. And when I use my metal snippers, they're big snips, the kind that you use to cut padlocks. When it snipped this off, it didn't go all the way through. It got about 3/4 of the way through, and then it snapped off. It just kind of flew off the other piece from this. I bought these rods that were about 8 inches long, and I cut them in half to about 4 inches each. And I used my snips to cut it in half, and it sprang across the floor when I cut the first piece pretty fast. Like, it reminded me of brass when I cut it. Steel doesn't snap that drastically. I don't know if that makes sense. For you guys that cut a lot of metal, I guess you can kind of relate to what I'm saying. The softer the metal, the less it will snap when you're cutting it with those snips. A soft metal will just stay together until the very end, and then it'll fall off. But no, this went about 75, maybe 80% the way through, and ting, it just took off. Snapped off, flew across the floor. So brass is more bouncy or snappy than steel. Did I say brass? Bronze? I can't remember. Bronze is turning out to be similar to the brass that I was using a long time ago. I got a free sample of brass from a friend of mine. He said I can get a ton of it if you want more. I said, okay, I'll try it. Turns out it doesn't work so well. Although you can get used to it, of course. You can get used to any metal, but it's better to use a metal that doesn't give you a lot of frustration. So yeah, it's slipping on the edge. I should be able to just rest it on that platform, but it's kind of slippery. It doesn't grip. The bronze doesn't grip the flint. But if you can get it to seat well, it still flakes. It can send a flake pretty far. Maybe I just need to make one with a shorter tip so I can get in and control it more, so I won't be moving around. When it's way out like this, it's hard, I guess, to keep it in one place. That might be it. So that's why I'm kind of gripping it closer to the tip. It does mark up your stone. It easily deposits on the stone. See that? You can write with it on the stone. I don't know if steel is that easily deposited on the stone. It's similar. But there's a lot more bronze that's deposited. Steel doesn't deposit as easily. Okay. It's funny, the bronze, you can write with it easier, but it doesn't grip the stone as well. I'm going to try to thin it down just a little more. Okay, I'm going to try to do as much pressure as I can with the bronze. I think steel is actually a lot better. Yeah, as far as gripping the edge, steel grips a lot better. It might also be the handle on this is giving me more control. That's the thing. I need to take some more time and make an exact duplicate of this with bronze to make a fair comparison. That means I got to cut the bronze to this size of tip, because all I've got is 5/16 bronze rod. I don't have anything thinner. So that means I need to cut it down or grind it down and then make another wood handle exactly like this one with the same kind of wood. So it takes a little time to get these tests just right. But for the most part, I think the bronze is a lot more slippery than steel. And requires more control on your part to get it to seat properly on the platform. Steel is more forgiving, but it's not as forgiving as copper. Copper really does well. It really grips. The only thing I don't like about copper is I end up bending the tips when I'm pressure flaking. And I know you can harden the copper by twisting it or hammering it. I just haven't done much of that. I usually use copper straight from the box or whatever. I don't hammer it or twist it to get it harder. Okay, let's see. That's not too bad. Yeah, as long as I can get it on the platform seated well. It seems to be okay. It just slips off the edge really easily. Which probably means I need to abrade it less. Now, if you are able to obtain bronze back in the Bronze Age, you definitely had copper. So, do I think the knappers were using bronze to knap their arrowheads? Probably not. They're probably reserving the bronze for their knives and vessels and ornaments, bells, or things like that. And the arrow points probably knapped with copper or antler in the Bronze Age. They still used flint arrowheads in the Bronze Age, in case you didn't know. They also use copper and bronze arrowheads as well, but for hunting and general purpose, I guess, especially for people who are poor, they use stone arrowheads. Well, I don't know if it was used all through the Bronze Age, because it was obviously much faster to mass produce cast bronze arrowheads than it is to mass produce flint arrowheads. You do have to take into account the time it takes to mine the flint in areas where there was a frost every winter. Your surface found flint was not a very good quality, so you have to mine it to get high quality flint. So that took some time. The flint that came out of the ground, deep within the ground, was not not freeze cracked or damaged in any way. And then once you get out of the ground, you've got to spall it into manageable pieces and then ship it out somehow. So there was still some transport involved. Just like the need to transport metals, and to set up an operation where you could melt down the metals and make the alloy with tin. Melt down the copper and make the alloy with tin. I think it's also possible to use arsenic. I don't know. But they found out pretty fast that was hazardous. I think the slipperiness of the bronze prevents you from maintaining good contact with the platform, so you end up getting flakes that are shorter than you would normally expect. Although it is holding up pretty well, it's not wearing down very fast. My copper tips wear down really, really fast when I'm doing pressure flaking. So it doesn't wear down as much as copper. Yeah, I gotta really put in some effort to get long flakes, and I think I might have to redesign this grip, this handle. Make an exact copy of the other one. I figured this would be good enough with these small points. I didn't realize it would slip around so much. Not sure if I just blew off the tip or not. The only advantage I can see is that at the tip, since it doesn't grip very much, it's not going to be as aggressive on the tip. So it may actually be good for tip work. Because if you have a tool that grips the tip really well, sometimes it'll just pry it off. Pry the tip of the arrowhead right off. But if it slips around, you really have to put some effort into removing a flake. It might help to preserve your tips. I don't know. It is a bit frustrating when it slips a lot. So yeah, just with this short exposure to bronze, I don't think they used it for flint knapping. Not when you have copper. Let's see. Yeah, normally with a sharper tipped tool, you can drive those flakes because it is a bit flexible. You know, this will flex slightly, so you can usually press off some nice flakes. But in this case, I'm just getting short ones. See if I can get rid of that step fracture. I tried to blow through it using the bronze tip. Let's try this steel tip. Almost. Yeah, probably could not have done that with the bronze. I'm going to try some delicate edge work or tiny serrations with this bronze pressure flaker. Just kind of preparing the edge first. I'm going to try to drive a few more long flakes. Try to get some narrow ones. Okay. Let's see if I can drive one right here. Yeah, without being able to control the position of the tip, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to drive anything. That one was a wide flake. That one just crushed. That one was a wide flake. Even with a narrow tip, it doesn't seem to be able to drive narrow flakes. And the surface is very convex. You know what I mean? It's not flat, so with a flat surface, you always get wide flakes, but with a fairly convex surface, I should be able to run longer, thinner flakes. Let's see. Let's see if I can do it with a steel. Going to try to match the size of the tip or the diameter of the very tip. Well, that's pretty well crushed right there. You see, that is a more narrow flake. See, it's not very wide. When I tried it with bronze down here, it blew a big old wide flake. See, I could drive a more narrow one here with steel. I'm just going to try to get rid of that area with the step fracture right there from when I tried to press off the pressure flakes with a lot of force. It just ended up crushing and causing a step fracture. I might be able to blow through that. Kind of, sort of. But I'm just going to leave it because I don't want it to get more narrow. I think I'm pretty sure some of the European arrowheads have concave bases. Just a simple triangle with a concave base. Yeah, I can drive flakes that are more narrow with the steel. Let's see. Try one more time on the other side with the bronze. It's a little bit more narrow, but it's still kind of wide. And it stops short. Yeah, the steel didn't go all the way either, so similar results. I'm just taking flakes off so I can remove some of those step fractures. I'm probably ruining the profile. Some of these arrowheads had long barbs. I'm just going to make that base a little bit deeper and call it good. And I was going to do little serrations on the edge, but I don't know. I'm getting impatient with the bronze pressure flaker. So maybe on the next video I'll try one of these with a really long barb on one side. I got a request for one of those anyway. I also got a request to do some ribbon flaking on it. So it's kind of a tall order, although I guess I'll try it. I gotta find some flint that'll allow me to do the ribbon flaking. Not all my rock will allow me to do that. I got a lot of it that's poor quality. Anyway, I guess that's it. Just a simple concave base, triangular point, just so I could experiment with the bronze flaker. It's kind of a disappointment, but I think it worked well on the tip, and that's one thing I like. I like to be able to get the tips right, and if it's a tool that grips it too much, I snap the tips off and that drives me up the wall. So at least that's a good part. Now I might be able to sharpen it down a lot more and create minute serrations with it. That might be an advantage. But I don't see an advantage with bronze as a pressure flaker back in the day, because it would be expensive. It would be better to be used for knives and swords and armor and cast arrowheads that could be used over and over again. You know what I mean? So instead of making an arrowhead out of bronze, you just making an arrowhead with bronze, you make it out of bronze. And it would last longer than a flint arrowhead that would usually break on the first shot. So yeah, if it was me, I would not use bronze for flint knapping, although it's kind of a cool thing to have as an option, I guess. All right. It is translucent. Edges are very sharp. Okay.